Nausicaä, The Valley of the Wind was released on March 11, 1984. It was directed by Miyazaki Hayao and produced by Takahata Isao. Valley of the Wind, in retrospect, can be considered a legendary film. Although Miyazaki and Isao were longtime creative partners, the success of Valley of the Wind directly led to the founding of Studio Ghibli and cemented their partnership. It is also the blueprint for a Ghibli film, with its clear environmentalist and anti-war messages, iconic animation style, world building, and more. However, does the film stand up to the test of time? This is Anime Films Revisited, and for the first episode, this is Nausicaä, The Valley of the Wind. Warning, spoilers ahead. Valley of the Wind opens by introducing the Sea of Decay, or the Toxic Jungle in other translations, and its backstory. 1,000 years after the 7 Days of Fire, which resulted in the collapse of industrial society and subsequent ecocide, a poisonous forest emerged. We are then introduced to our protagonist, Nausicaä, who is exploring this forest. She finds a dead Ohm, a massive arthropod with many eyes. Their name is composed of the Japanese characters O, king, and Mu, short for mushi, or insect. So, king insect. However, it likely has another meaning. In Hindu tradition, Om is considered to be the primordial sound of the universe. It's also used in Buddhist practice, especially in meditation, kind of like Om. Anyways, the choice to name the creature Om is further reinforced when Nausicaä hits its shell. It exhibits properties like a tuning fork, where striking it will produce a set frequency. Already, the symbol of the Om implies that these creatures existed before man, which can be more broadly interpreted as nature existing before man. Though it must be said that this may just be a coincidence, and Miyazaki didn't intend for their name to have a second meaning. But I would be surprised if this was entirely by accident, because it's so thematically fitting. After Nausicaä cuts out one of the Ohm's eyes to take back home, spores start raining down from the sky. But they seem harmless, as Nausicaä is able to take a nap while lying down in them. It must be because she's wearing proper protection, as she says that the Sea of Decay's atmosphere is so toxic that one's lungs will rot through in 5 minutes without a mask on. She then hears a gunshot in the distance, and she gets on her glider to investigate. She finds that a man, riding an ostrich-like creature, is being chased by an enraged Ohm. After admiring the Ohm and guiding the man to safety, Nausicaä's first thoughts are that the Ohm is blinded by rage, maybe because its eyes are red, and that she has to calm him. She does so successfully by dropping a shit ton of flashbangs on it. The Ohm goes blarg, and then she uses a bow roar to guide it away, after which it departs. After this exploit, Nausicaä returns to meet up with the man the Ohm was chasing. His name is Lord Yupa, a village elder and a famed swordsman. Lord Yupa hands Nausicaä a fox squirrel who's aggressive and bites her. However, Nausicaä is unbothered, saying that the fox squirrel is only afraid of the unknown, and by showing him that there's nothing to be afraid of, he quickly calms down. Nausicaä names him Teto, and he becomes her loyal companion for the rest of the film. Nausicaä's ability to calm Teto highlights her empathy towards the creatures of this world, which Yupa describes as a mysterious power. Nausicaä and Lord Yupa live in the titular Valley of the Wind, which protects the villagers from the Sea of Decay because of its blessed winds. There's also a prophecy from the valley, which predicts that there will be a savior clothed in a blue robe descending onto a golden field. I wonder who that could be. Soon, the valley gets disturbed by a massive ship in the sky. Lord Yupa says that the ship is from the Empire of Tomikia, an imperialist and militaristic nation. The ship crashes along with a young girl. Nausicaä tries to save her, but to no avail. Before dying, the girl reveals that she is Princess Listel of Pejit, a nation controlled by Tomikia, and begs Nausicaä to destroy the plane cargo. From the plane wreckage, an injured insect, dude, that thing is nasty, emerges. The villagers gather around it, unsure what to do. Nausicaä resists the calls to kill it and calms the beast using the same bow roar she used a while back. The villagers are ecstatic that Nausicaä is able to guide the bug away without having millions of those creatures swarm the village and slaughter them all. One relieved villager says that there's no telling how much we'd suffer for just an insect's death, which is an explicit environmentalist message. Even a small action, which disrupts an ecosystem, can have severe, rippling effects. Nausicaä's philosophy of solving problems with non-violence also directly juxtaposes her with the Empire of Tomikia. After the dust settles, the cargo is revealed to be a monster from the Old World, or the last surviving giant warrior which burned the world in the 7 Days of Fire. It's only an embryo, but it was too heavy for the ship to carry. I'll just call these giant warriors Destructo robots. Unfortunately, the villagers are not given an opportunity to carry out Princess Listelle's wishes, as the Empire of Tomikia quickly descends on the village. They quickly subjugate the people with their superior military technology and kill Nausicaä's father, the leader of the village. Enraged, Nausicaä fights some soldiers and kills a few of them, directly contradicting what I said earlier about her non-violent philosophy. But as the kids these days say, that's a valid crash out. However, Yupa quickly intervenes, stopping Nausicaä's sword with his own arm. The female commander of the Tomikian troops, called Kushana, commends Yupa's skills, to which he questions why they have invaded the valley. He also tells Nausicaä to calm down, saying that if she fights now, the villagers will be slaughtered, which reinforces the idea that violence is not the correct answer. Spurred by the heat of the moment, continuing to fight would have resulted in horrible consequences, much like killing that cute insect from the ship wreckage. Commander Kushana then talks to the villagers, stating that the Empire wishes to burn away the Sea of Decay and guarantee a life away from the swamp by harnessing ancient technology, the Destructo robot. However, Obaba, the valley's resident wise old woman, says that they must not burn away the Sea of Decay, because each time humans have tried, Ohms have swarmed the Earth like a tidal wave, resulting in apocalypse and the further expansion of the Sea of Decay. Her words cause quite the commotion, and it looks like chaos is about to erupt. But Nausicaä knows that to keep the people of the valley safe, they must submit to the Tomikians, for now. In exchange for the villagers behaving, Kushana takes some hostages, one of them being Nausicaä. Before Commander Kushana and the hostages depart for Pajit, I need to say that from the film it's not clear why they have to go to Pajit. Yupa discovers Nausicaä's plant collection, which is full of toxic plants from the Sea of Decay. According to Nausicaä, with pure water and soil, the plants are not venomous. Instead, the world is toxic. The implication is that humanity has driven itself to ruin by poisoning the earth, and nature must adapt to this newfound reality, contrary to the belief that the Sea of Decay is humankind's enemy. But now that she's being taken hostage, Nausicaä has to shut off the water, which brings her to tears. On the journey to Pajit, Commander Kushana and Nausicaä are aboard a Tomikian aircraft, flanked by at least 4 other warships. Some of the other hostages note that their formation indicates that they're afraid of an attack, and indeed, a tiny gunship emerges which starts gunning down the warships left and right. In fact, their entire fleet gets downed by a single man, which kind of shattered the image of an invincible military empire for me, especially considering that their commander was caught in the crossfire. Seems like bad tactics. Nausicaä, devastated at the brutality, stands on the roof of the burning ship. I mean, all of them are burning, but the one she's in, and yells, "No more killing!" as the gunship pilot is barreling straight towards her. The gunship pilot has a strange vision and gets shot down, sending him tumbling down towards the Sea of Decay. The fall should have killed him, but of course, the film can't have Nausicaä killing the pilot and becoming a villain. I mean, who cares about the grunts she killed? This guy is obviously an important character. As the gunship she's in also comes burning down, she manages to escape with the rest of the hostages, and chooses to save Kushana in the process. Eventually, they land in a pool of water in the middle of the Sea of Decay. Kushana quickly tries to take command by pulling a gun out on them, and Nausicaä rebukes her by saying that she doesn't know what one gunshot will do. Does that sound familiar? The message of small things disturbing the equilibrium and leading to consequences is prominent throughout the film, such as that one villager saying there's no telling how much we'd suffer for just an insect's death. But naturally, Kushana fires a shot, which attracts a bunch of Ohms over. Nausicaä tries to calm the Ohms down by showing her pure intentions, after which she is enveloped in one of their golden tentacles. She is shown a vision of a large golden field and this cool-looking tree. After exiting from her vision, we see a swarm of potentially millions of insects leaving the Sea of Decay after being disturbed by the plane crash. It shows that the Tomikians may think that they're saving humanity by fighting nature, but they're only digging themselves into a deeper and deeper hole which they cannot recover from. After all, nature will always win in the end and outlast humanity. Nausicaä then notices that the gunship pilot who crashed is being swarmed by a bunch of insects, after which she hops in her glider to save him. She is able to successfully guide him away from the bugs, but then falls into quicksand. She has a dream where she protects a baby Ohm from faceless, evil humans who say that insects and humans can't live in the same world. The evil people are actually her family and the villagers, though, which could be interpreted in a few different ways. First, you need to have the conviction to stick to your beliefs, even when the people around you tell you differently. But Nausicaä being shown as a powerless kid shows that the adults have steered the world wrong in their lust for control. The film makes it clear that consequences only emerge when humans try to force their notion of order to nature. But now that Nausicaä is no longer a kid, will she be able to restore the natural balance? We'll see. She later wakes up in a mysterious place and sees the gunship pilot. When she asks him where they are, he replies that they are in a cavern underneath the Sea of Decay. The air in this cavern is pure and there is flowing water, which seems to defy all the rules of the poisonous land. I found the design of this place striking. It's desolate, and the almost entirely blue color palette of the water and the tree stumps indicate purity. The trees themselves are also interesting, as they strongly resemble dragon's blood trees. The unique shape of dragon's blood trees is an adaptation to arid environments, allowing the trees to capture moisture from the fog and clouds. The tree can inject several times more water into the soil than the local environment captures as rainfall, which provides realism to this underground hydrological system. I'm not sure how much they knew about the properties of this tree back then, but if this design choice was intentional, props to Miyazaki and co. If it was a primarily aesthetic choice, that's also good. Anyways, after exploring the cavern, Nausicaä is able to pinpoint how this system has formed after spotting grains of sand. Her theory is that the trees in the Sea of Decay grew to purify a toxic world, which explains the presence of sand and water in the cavern. She then falls asleep after explaining this to the gunship pilot, who is actually Princess Listel's twin brother, Asbel. After leaving the cavern, Nausicaä and Asbel return to Pajit, to which they find it completely devastated. They then run into the Pajit survivors, and she learns of their evil plans. It turns out that they lured insects from the Sea of Decay into Pajit in order to massacre the occupying Tomikian forces. They also intend to lure Ohms into the Valley of the Wind in order to reclaim the Destructo robot embryo. The Pajit leader justifies their actions by saying that we've lost most of our people to the Tomikians and resigns himself to saying that they cannot reverse what has already been done, which echoes the sentiment of one's actions leading to consequences far out of their own control, albeit in a different, more defeatist light. Nausicaä is understandably horrified after hearing about this, but she is taken captive on the Pajit survivor's ship after she tries to hop on her glider and alert the valley. However, nearly all the women on the ship, including Asbel and Listel's mother, help Nausicaä to escape. Perhaps you could read into this scene and think that Miyazaki is invoking the notion of Mother Nature, or that women are nurturing like nature. After escaping the ship, Nausicaä speeds over to the valley and sees a tidal wave of red-eyed Ohms barreling towards it. She notices that someone is baiting them, and she sees a flying machine in the distance with a baby Ohm hooked underneath it. Nausicaä manages to catch up to them and free the baby Ohm and tries to comfort it as it bleeds out. And the vision of her protecting the baby Ohm becomes reality. Back at the valley, the Tomikians are making their final stand as the valley people can do nothing but watch. Kushana, who managed to escape and teleport back to the valley, I suppose, calls to awaken the Destructo robot. However, because it is prematurely awakened, it looks like a giant blob of flesh. It manages to fire a few lasers at the giant Ohm horde, but then begins to melt. It seems at this point that everyone is going to die. However, because Nausicaä was able to save the baby Ohm, the Ohms stop just before annihilating everyone on the hill. The Ohms then use their golden tentacles to raise Nausicaä in the air and heal her wounds. The old woman Obaba realizes that this was the prophecy that was foretold, and everyone celebrates. The clothed in a blue robe part of the prophecy was fulfilled because Nausicaä's pink dress got stained by the baby Ohm's blood, turning it blue, and the golden field was the Ohm tentacle thingies. Nice. Overall, Nausicaä of the Valley of the Wind is an impressive film. It shows the triumph of Nausicaä's philosophy over the Tomikians, represented by Kushana. Non-violence works as opposed to violence, and making peace with nature works instead of expediting humanity's destruction by playing with it. There are many points throughout the film where the characters resign themselves to the inevitability of war and destruction. However, the final shot of the film, which shows a non-toxic plant growing, signifies a hopeful ending, that it is not too late to try to resolve humanity's mistakes. There were also some other parts of the film I liked which didn't make it into my commentary before. For example, Kushana showed that she had lost her arms thanks to an insect attack, demonstrating that her hatred of them was justified to some extent. However, I don't think that Valley of the Wind is as good as Spirited Away, for example, because there are many more loose threads throughout the film. The Valley of the Wind universe is fantastically complicated, perhaps the most complicated out of all the Ghibli films. There is a point in the film where Kushana essentially says that entire nations will fight over the destructive robot embryo, but we are only shown 2 nations in sparse detail, while the specter of World War III and humanity's demise looms over the final act of the film. Other important things, such as the mechanics behind the Sea of Decay and the film's side characters, like Lord Yupa, Asbel, and Kushana, are also not really explored in depth. I think the Valley of the Wind universe could have benefited from another film or two to tell the story properly. After all, Miyazaki had to write an entire manga series to do it. A small thing I have to mention are the few scenes where it looks like Nausicaä is inappropriately exposing herself, except she's not. She's actually wearing flesh-colored pants, so even though we can see her entire ass sticking out when the wind lifts her dress up in some scenes, she's not actually exposing herself. But of course, it needs to be emphasized that every frame of animation is intentional. Viewing these parts of the film was exasperating, and an unfortunate reminder to me of the culturally acceptable voyeurism commonplace in Japanese media. You could write it off, however, as something like, it's just how it was back then. Overall, Nausicaä of the Valley of the Wind is a gorgeous film, and a fitting introduction to the eco-philosophy, animation style, and sprawling storytelling of Ghibli. However, because of the film's unexplored complexity, it just feels like there's something missing. If you've miraculously made it to the end, I just want to say thank you. This is my first video ever, so my initial workflow was pretty bad and I wasted an absurd amount of time trying to get this out. But overall, I'm pretty happy with how this project came out. There's a lot more films I'd like to talk about, so hopefully more videos coming. That being said, I would really appreciate it if you could do the things the YouTube algorithm likes to give me motivation. And let me know if there's anything I can improve on or change about the video format. Stay tuned and bye.